Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Pitch Side Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the video, of course, subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, enable notifications to receive all the updates from the podcast episodes and the other content on this channel. Follow us on social media. I'm at PSP on Twitter, Pitch Side Pod on Instagram. And of course, listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you can get it from, or catch it later on at www.webreesports.com. We're not going to waste a lot of time, and we're going to be kicking things off straight away with talking about, of course, the Bundesliga. As you can see from the thumbnail and the title, I'm going to give it the first priority in this episode. 35 episodes, by the way. I mean, wow. I never thought I would get this far, but I got this far. The Bundesliga, of course, 7 matches took place yesterday, and it started in Bielefeld as Arminia Bielefeld hosted Borussia Mönchengladbach and lost by the odd goal. Now, this game, Borussia Mönchengladbach dominated, obviously, had loads of chances. They could have easily won 4, 5 or 6-0 probably, but they missed a bunch of opportunities. Beryl Bola in particular missed at least 3 or 4 goals in the game, but in the end he ended up scoring the winner for Borussia Mönchengladbach, giving them a 1-0 lead. An important win actually for Borussia Mönchengladbach. They haven't been winning for a while. It seems it is the first win in their last 4 or 5 games, really, which is a sort of a big, I mean, it's a big problem, really, for Borussia Mönchengladbach getting wins as of late, of course. They had a big dip in form compared to the other big clubs, so to speak, or the clubs that are featuring the Champions League round of 16 from Germany. They had a biggest probably dip in form of all the top clubs in Germany. As I mentioned, of course, for Borussia Mönchengladbach, this is the first win in 5 in the Bundesliga, and that is, of course, taking away the cup win against Elversberg before the break, of course. Keeping in the Bundesliga, of course, Union Berlin defeated Werder Bremen away from home. This was another victory for the surprise package of the Bundesliga. I think Union Berlin are one of the most exciting sides to watch, really. Yes, they play 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, depending on how you see it and how the position was. But I think it is one of the most exciting sides in the Bundesliga to watch in Union Berlin, really. The club, again, I really grew a big liking for that club because of its fan legion, because of its specific culture in Germany. Being a sort of a self-made club, like this kind of fans based on fan support and all, and I really enjoy watching Union Berlin. And they delivered against Werder Bremen, a game where they settled since the first half, really, since the first half an hour to be more precise. They settled the game with a 2-0 lead, of course, thanks to Becker and Avoni. The goals, of course, made Werder Bremen go forward. They attacked a little bit more, but they couldn't win. They couldn't go for anything in this game. They didn't manage to threaten Union Berlin that much, and they didn't score, of course, expectedly, and they lost 2-0 for Union Berlin. This victory is very, very important. It puts them actually top 4 of the table. It puts them in the 4th place, ahead of both Wolfsburg and Borussia Dortmund, who are going to be in a head-to-head clash today in the Signal Iduna Park. Union Berlin, European places are not far-fetched, really, from Union Berlin's future, but I think we can agree when I say that they are one of the most exciting sides of the Bundesliga, and if you don't enjoy watching Union Berlin, then something is wrong with you, really. From Union Berlin winning to Augsburg winning, defeating Köln, of course, in the game between them, 1-0 away from home. 77 minutes. The goal came for Augsburg. They left it late by Florian Niederlechner to pick up the 3 points against a decent Köln side that played really well. I enjoy watching Köln because of the Tunisian fellow Tunisian in mine, Elias Skhiri, who plays in the midfield for Köln, of course. I really think that he's one of the best players of Köln, and I think he's quite underrated. I probably think he deserves a bigger club for his contribution and his qualities, I'd say, in the midfield. For Köln, Augsburg, of course, as I mentioned, were 1-0, a hard-fought, I would say, victory. Köln missed a lot of chances in that game, but Augsburg did as well. Moving on now to Bayer Leverkusen, travelled away to Frankfurt. The face Eintracht, it was the first game for them back after that, I would say, horrific loss against Bayern because of the way it happened. They shot themselves in the foot, really. They gave away the goals. But it was, again, same scenario, copy and paste exactly from the game against Bayern. Bayer Leverkusen, they just dropped the ball really well. After a great opening goal, actually, from Nadim Amiri. I mean, by the way, that goal, you need to check it out. Seriously, you need to check out that goal. Go out of your way, look up that goal and watch it. It is amazing. The pass from Florian Wirtz, the turn from Amiri, the nutmeg on the turn, the back heel flick. It is an outrageous goal. If that doesn't end up being in the conversation for the Puskás Awards for 2021, I mean, something is wrong with the word, really. It was amazing, but what happened after the goal is a really horrible story. So, of course, as I mentioned, Bayer Leverkusen were leading. They were 1-0 up by 9 minutes. But again, they I don't know what I say, collapsed maybe. They regressed. They sort of lashed out for the rest of the game, because Eintracht Frankfurt afterwards took the game by the scruff of the neck, equalised in the 22nd minute by Amin Younes from the assist of Saul. And then, of course, just, managed to control the game afterwards, I would say, until the end of the first half. In the second half, Borussia Mönchengladbach, probably didn't go out on the pitch, it looked like, because Eintracht Frankfurt were all over them in the second half. And, again, as I mentioned earlier, shooting themselves in the foot, earning the name Bayern Neverkusen, not just Leverkusen, Bayern Neverkusen. And Edmund Tepsober, one of the defenders that I really enjoyed watching over this season. I thought he's one of the best defenders in the Bundesliga. He ends up scoring an own goal in his own net, of course. I'm not going to say that he wants to score own goals to ridiculise himself, but it feels bad giving the ball away against Bayern twice, pretty much. He was the one that that scored the second goal for Bayern, because the shot of Lewandowski took deflection of him, and now an own goal given Frankfurt the important 3 points for them, considering that they didn't win a lot this season. 8 draws. I mean, again, I mentioned it yesterday, but that derailed the momentum of Eintracht Frankfurt a lot this season, and hopefully for them, with these 3 points, they could kick off a proper campaign, and it could really have some sort of momentum going for them this season under Adi Hütter. This victory, of course, puts Borussia Mönchengladbach, keeps them at 7th, but gets up Eintracht Frankfurt to 20th point with 8th place on the table. This could be really interesting as far as Europa League places are concerned, really the game of musical chairs, but Borussia Mönchengladbach, they really regressed a lot above them, so they might take their place as well. As far as Bayer Leverkusen, again, they earned the name Bayern Neverkusen. They called that for a reason, really, because they seem to fluff their lines at the worst possible moment, and the last 2 games were that worst possible moment. They had a lot of expectation in the Bayern game, they flopped it. They had a lot of expectations for the this game against Frankfurt, and everybody thought, well, okay, they lose once, fine, but they can't do that twice. And with the same scenario as well, the fact that they shoot themselves in the foot and they give up the lead again, and they end up the first half on level terms, and then they leave themselves wide open in the second half. It was horrible for the Leverkusen fans. But hoping for a return for Bayer Leverkusen to the right form and give us a really good race this season. I'm really still holding my fingers, considering that the other top dog in this race, of course, have won, and we get them just in a moment. Hoffenheim lost to Freiburg 3-1 at home. It seems that aside from the Frankfurt Leverkusen game, it seems that the away teams have a lot to say in this fixture in the Bundesliga. 3-1, including an own goal for Hoffenheim, who continue their slump in the Bundesliga. Freiburg continue to impress me really in the last couple of weeks. They're really hitting a good stride of form. Now they are 9th with 20 points. And, they could string up a couple of good wins, taking advantage of Hoffenheim's horrendous situation at the moment. Hoffenheim, who do not seem to gather 3 points when they need them, really. They defeated Borussia Mönchengladbach a couple of weeks ago. But before that, they couldn't win in their last 5 in the Bundesliga, and the last win, aside from that Bundesliga win, was in the Europa League against Ghent in the last fixture of the group stages. So for Hoffenheim, for a side that is competing in Europe, it's horrendous form. For Freiburg, it's an interesting form. I thought they deserved a place in Europe last season, but they couldn't quite get it. So maybe this season they would get into the Europa League and really see those kind of incredible players that they have, the likes of Schmidt, Vincenzo Grifo, of course, he's one of their most important dynamos in the side, of course, Demirovic, Santa Maria and Günther Schmid in the midfield as well. Again, they have a bunch of incredible players, and they feel so dynamic, I would say, Freiburg. Moving on and to some sad notes, I would say, talking about Schalke, who lost their first game of the year 2021 to Hertha Berlin away from home 3-0. They had a decent game at the beginning, really. They had an early sort of rush in the first 25 to 30 minutes, but I think afterwards Hertha Berlin, former Arsenal stalwart Matteo Guendouzi, opened the scoring for them at a 36-minute beautiful goal, by the way, well placed shot in the net. 36 minutes, Hertha Berlin lead, and Schalke just collapsed afterwards. It is a simple story that's been repeating itself so much in the Bundesliga this season, and again, hopefully for Schalke, they could at least win. Like, I'm not saying that they would save themselves from relegation, because that is seeming impossible at the moment with the amount of points they had, the performances that they put on the pitch, the sheer unlucky nature of them. It looks like they won't be saving themselves from relegation. So here's a toast. They could at least break this winless, almost undefeated, this winless streak of 30 games in the next fixture, but it doesn't look so. The record, of course, is still with Tasmania Berlin since 1955, it looks like. 55 years, sorry, not 1955, 55 years, with Tasmania Berlin losing 31 on the bounce, and even they want to keep that record intact, because it is the one thing that links them to the Bundesliga, because they were an amateur club made of amateur players, and they had only one season in the Bundesliga, and they enjoyed it, and they didn't care that they lose 31 games. They didn't win for 31 games, so it is exactly a record, maybe unwanted, but for Tasmania Berlin, they wanted to keep it because it represents the only link they have with the Bundesliga. For Schalke, is again just sad. It is just sad all over to talk about Schalke and all fair. And in the late kickoff, of course, of the Bundesliga, Leipzig, a hard-fought win against Stuttgart, 1-0. Of course, hard-fought not in terms that they didn't dominate the game or they didn't have more possession. It is hard in terms of missing a lot of chances, missing a penalty. Basically, they didn't make it comfortable for themselves. They needed a lot of time to score, and eventually, of course, when they scored, the assist was from Angelino, which is telling really of how important the guy is for the club, of course. I don't know. I mean, he played as a winger. Basically, he played high up front in 3-4-3, or even a 4-3-3 as an out-and-out left winger, which is which is very considerable for him. I mean, it's a shift in position, it's transformation. I think for Angelino, he is an incredible outlet for Leipzig. Now, how Manchester City did let someone like that go, I don't know. I don't understand it, but he's doing really, really well with RB Leipzig. He's leading them to all sorts of success this season. Leipzig now, with this victory, move up the table, of course, top of the table, ahead of the game between Bayern Munich and Mainz today, and as well by Borussia Dortmund facing Wolfsburg before that, of course. In the Premier League, of course, 4 games were played yesterday, and we kick off with the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where Tottenham Hotspur hosted Leeds United. It was an easy win for Tottenham Hotspur, not in terms that they dominated the game, but it was an easy win in the fact that it suited the style that Mourinho played. A 3-0 victory against Leeds United. I mentioned a lot that Leeds United plays some suicidal football, and this suicidal football, when it comes with goals, okay, it's probably justified maybe, but when it doesn't come with goals, like this game, and they struggle to score against a side that really closes down well into Tottenham, and again, compact, and they know how to defend, and yes, they park the bus, but yeah, they know how to do it. At least we should give credit for Mourinho for knowing how to park the bus and to defend. The same, the Kane combination, killing the opposition once again, and a goal and an assist for each on the night. Kane opening the scoreline at the half-an-hour mark. Then, of course, Son adding the second goal in the 43rd minute before half-time. And from there, of course, it was the usual game for Hotspur. It was the defence and then pick him on the counter. Fortunately, the third goal wasn't on a counter. It wasn't a set-piece defending, which is another problem Leeds United had this season, set-piece defending. The goal, settled the deal, and of course Tottenham afterwards felt really, really comfortable in managing the game and really controlling the tempo and the pace of the game against the Leeds United that were decent. Again, they didn't change their football, they didn't sit in the back, they didn't try to litigate the damage, so to speak, and try to just leave with the 3 goals. They just continued attacking, and they had chances, but they couldn't convert them. They didn't have the biggest of chances. Later on in the game, of course, Matt Doherty was sent off for Tottenham Hotspur, and he finished the game with 1 man down. For Tottenham now, they are 3rd to the table. They are 3rd on the table behind Manchester United. Of course, the difference is 4 points and 1 game now in hand for Tottenham Hotspur. Of course, the top 2, them and Man United both have games in hand, so we'll see how that works in terms of the table. Crystal Palace defeated Sheffield United. Sheffield United are going down. It is simple. They're going down. 2 goals by Schlupp and Eze. Solo goal, brilliant solo goal by the way from Eze. Go and check it out as well. Just like the Nadim Amiri won the Bundesliga. An exciting game. It was a festival of goals in the Amex as Brighton drew 3-3 with Wolverhampton. It was an incredible game. It was amazing. I mean, I didn't have an interest to watch it really, but when things started to get serious, I picked up the TV, and it was an incredible watch. For me, Brighton took the lead by Canole, Roman Saiz equalised, and then Dan Burn scored an own goal for the second goal to take the lead, to give Wolves the lead. Mopé, just about the opening of the second half, equalised for Brighton as well. Before Lewis Dunk in the 70th minute scoring the 3rd goal of the game, giving Brighton the all-important draw at home after losing, of course, against Arsenal. This draw keeps Brighton in the 17th position, but gives them an extra point, 14 points at the 17th position, just above the relegation battlers. And speaking of relegation battlers, West Brom hosted Arsenal, and they got a drubbing in a snowy night. It was the Kieran Tierney show in the Hawthorns as Arsenal managed to dismantle West Brom 4-0. And this is a word you cannot associate with Arsenal this season, dismantling teams, but that's what happened yesterday. It was probably the best football Arsenal played. This, again, I argue that the victories against Brighton and West Brom that they had as of late were even more important than the victory against Chelsea, because these games are unpredictable and you don't know what could happen to you. And West Brom, they had great games against Man City and Liverpool, but they get dropped back-to-back by Leeds 5-0 and by Arsenal 4-0. Bukayo Saka is just one of the most incredible talents in the Premier League and in the world at the moment. Tierney opening the scoring with a beautiful goal. I mean, a beautiful goal, like goals galore in the European top leagues yesterday. A brilliant dribble with his left foot and then setting the ball on his right foot and just placing it beyond Johnston in the goalkeeper of West Brom for a 1-0 lead. Saka made it 2 before the half-time whistle with a brilliant team goal. A link up between him, Lacazette and Smith Rowe was terrific. The run he made was so smart. He is an incredible player. Lacazette scored twice in the first 25 minutes of the second half, 60 minutes and 64 minutes, and that was your lot. Arsenal with a third victory in a row, a second clean sheet in a row, the second away victory in a row. It is, I'm not going to say it's all going so well for Arsenal, but it is a big improvement compared to where Arsenal was 3 weeks ago, a month ago, where Lacazette was 3 weeks ago, a month ago as well. But also you have to think of the fact that Aubameyang is still not scoring despite starting that game really, and still not contributing this season enough with Arsenal, as while Lacazette, of course, has taken the mantra of scoring now for Arsenal, and he's going to be simply undroppable in the next couple of games, considering his form. Arsenal now move up to 11th, which is an upgrade from where they were a couple of weeks ago again, so relegation, I think they're safe from that kind of conversation right now, with 23 points above there, above of course, and West Brom are keeping in the down 8 points at 19th. The Premier League falls today. 2 matches take place. Newcastle United host Leicester City and Chelsea host Manchester City, while Southampton host Liverpool on a Monday. Moving on, and in Spain, of course, also 4 games were played yesterday. It was Villarreal versus Levante, 2-1 it ends for the Yellow Submarines. Betis drawn against Sevilla in the derby, in the Betis derby, 1-1 at the Benito Villamarín. Getafe lost at home to Valladolid, 1-0, and of course the big game focus here is on Real Madrid defeating Celta Vigo in a game that was eventually more comfortable than it looked or sounded on paper. Real Madrid, I mean, I was intrigued for this game. I was really intrigued. I was interested because of the form of Celta Vigo as of late, the turn of fortunes that they had under the new coach, the change in their style. They became more exciting. They're picking up wins on a road. They've been moving up the table, and now they're facing Real Madrid. And I thought, well, this is an interesting game for both, and especially for Real Madrid to test their mettle after the unexpected draw against Elche in the midweek. And in the end, it was more comfortable than it looked, and Real Madrid scored since the 6th minute. Celta Vigo had a decent first half, more so than the second half, but they never looked like they're going to be doing anything significant in the game. Like, seriously, you might pick up on defensive mistakes for Real Madrid usually, but even with the absence of Ramos, of course, for contract sort of negotiations kind of thing, he's not injured really, but it's about the contract situation for him. The game was again more comfortable than it had any right to be for Real Madrid. They shouldn't have been winning it that comfortably, and it wasn't comfortability in terms of dominating the game. It was more of Celta Vigo not doing really well. They get caught twice, crucially in those 2 goals. They get caught on the counter twice, And the first goal, like literally the first goal, is a copy-paste scenario that have been happening for Real Madrid in the past couple of matches. They miss a chance, Celta Vigo, and Real Madrid go on counter from the other side and score a goal. And credit to Asensio again for putting on a hell of a cross for Lucas Vazquez to the far post, scoring the opening goal. The game never looked the same afterwards. And of course, in the second half, Iago Aspas went down injured, and it was never the same. And they lost their focal point, Celta Vigo, and it was never the same. The game looked cold afterwards, no heat whatsoever. Real Madrid looked way comfortable again. They should have been, and they got a 3 points in the bag, and they still keep it now. With the top of the table chase. Actually, they are top of the table now with 36 points ahead of Atletico Madrid, playing Deportivo Alaves away, but certainly that lead isn't going to last, whether today or when Atletico Madrid actually play their 2 games in hand that they still have, because in my opinion, clinically, quote-unquote, the Liga title race, I think, is dead in the water. But it's just the fact that we need to wait and see the end of the season, what is going to be bringing to the table. The Liga, of course, continues today. Athletic Club faces Elche, as I mentioned. Alaves hosts Atletico Madrid. Real Sociedad, another horse in the top table race, face Osasuna. Eibar hosts Granada, and Barcelona travelling to Huesca, a very, very tricky trip for Ronald Koeman, and the reports are actually escalating of bus stops between players, Ter Stegen and Messi. We don't know about the whole situation in Barcelona. It looks really, really rough at that club at the moment. The picture and the pictures of him, of Lionel Messi, leaving the stadium mid-game, like the game is not over, mid-game, leaving the stadium with a dejected look on his face is something that the media is going to pick up on, and there are going to be stories till the cows come home about that. Enough of La Liga, moving on to Serie A. Finishing, of course, the talk and the previews, of course, with the Serie A. It is all 10 games taking place on Sunday, of course. Let's go through that fixture list. Of course, Inter hosts Crotone, Spezia Verona, Roma hosts Sampdoria, Parma hosts Torino, Genoa hosts Lazio, Fiorentina hosts Bologna, Cagliari hosts Napoli, Atalanta hosts Sassuolo. Very interesting game again to watch. Benevento hosts AC Milan, the poetic meeting, as I mentioned, between Filippo Inzaghi and his former playing side, and Juventus in the late kickoff hosting Udinese. This week, of course, I mean, I think the important thing is the build-up to the Juventus-Milan game in midweek. I don't think that this is some sort of transitional fixture for both Milan and Juventus, I would say, but certainly none of them is going to be dropping points or wanting to drop points at least. Benevento against Milan and Inter against Crotone. Which one of which is more likely to drop points? Probably it will be AC Milan, because Benevento already have precedence in making big clubs dropping points. They took a point out of Lazio, they took a point out of Juve, and I mean, yes, they were dropped by Inter early on in the season, correct, but I don't think that it would be that easy for AC Milan. They probably need another save from either Theo Hernandez or any other player. Milan, of course, entered this game still missing Zlatan Ibrahimovic for injury. He's going to be missing a couple of games. Potentially he will be back for the game, but probably he will feature on the bench, of course, if he is fit, but mostly he is unfit for the game, as well as Gabbia and Salamakis, but they're going to be welcoming the return of Romagnoli and Kial. You know, resting a couple of players is going to be important for them ahead of the game against Juventus in the midweek as well. They're leading the table. They're looking good, so they don't have to risk all of their players in this game against Benevento, although, as I mentioned, again, Benevento are probably going to be working to make the upset and to make Milan drop points ahead of that crucial game against Juventus. Speaking of Juventus, their game against Udinese is a pretty rough one. Like, again, it's not an easy one to digest. Juve this season have been unconvincing to enormous level. Like, take the level that they've been in last season under Maurizio Sarri and amplified to 11 in terms of not being convincing under Andrea Pirlo, who didn't find the combination that works for him yet. He changes formations a lot. He doesn't seem stable on the personnel that he wants to choose in the midfield, on the defense as well. Doesn't know how to have a proper style of play. Does he want to play the possession-based football that I'm sure he enjoys as a former midfielder, a former maestro really of the midfield? I would say he enjoys that kind of football, or playing a sort of a deep line ball that relies on the counter or relies on the quick transitions, similar to the Mourinho style in Tottenham. I don't think he wants that, but he needs to get it together, because now he's already like 9 points behind Milan in the table, and that is really, really bad. Like, I mean, you're not just 9 points, he's 10 points actually, correctly. He's 10 points off Milan at the top of the table, and he doesn't want that gap to be widened by dropping points elsewhere before the head-to-head clash between Milan and Juventus in the midweek, which is the very anticipated fixture in the Serie A for the weekend. He doesn't want to drop points, because he knows if he drops points, it is the end for his title race ambitions, and he won't be seeing the title anytime soon. The other Milan side, of course, as I mentioned, in Inter, they host Crotone. I think this should be straightforward for Antonio Conte. This should be straightforward in the terms of they need the win, so they should get the win. Antonio Conte's side, they don't need to waste any opportunities. They'd have no European football to distract them, so to speak, focusing on the Serie A title. And now it's every game. I would say it every time I talk about Serie A. It's win or bust for Antonio Conte when it comes to the Serie A, because his future now with the club is linked with winning. The league, again, a couple of other interesting games. Atalanta Sassuolo, if you have time, really go out and check it and watch it. If you have space and you didn't watch another game in another league, watch Atalanta Sassuolo. It's a very interesting game. Roma Sampdoria, that's a very good one as well. Genoa Lazio, a tricky test for Simone Inzaghi's side, coming off of the loss against AC Milan in the before the break. Cagliari host Napoli, game for Gennaro Gattuso's boys. Of course, again, a quick recovery for Gennaro Gattuso, hopefully with Napoli picking up points and keeping the steam behind the top dogs in Serie A. Again, it's a cracking fixture, all games on one day, but of course, the big point and the big looking point ahead is certainly the Milan versus Juventus clash on Wednesday late at the San Siro. So that's it for the episode. Thank you for listening / watching. Like, share, comment on the episode, what you think of all the action that happened yesterday and what is going to be happening today. Subscribe to the channel, most importantly, enable notifications to receive all the updates of this podcast and other content on this channel. I was your boy, the HOD of the PSP. Follow me on social media at PSP on Twitter, PitchSideboard on Instagram. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you can get it from, or catch it later on at www.webreathesports.com. And until the next time, I will see you soon. Goodbye.